What's likely to happen when two former buddies have a big fallout at school and one of them feels like being a particularly spiteful knob? That kid's gonna phone fast hotline and snitch on his game pipe. You've turned schools into f***ing Soviet Russia! Fuck! Guys, just before we get started with today's video, I do want to say that it's brought to you by Brilliant. What is Brilliant? Well, it's the best way to learn math, or as we'd call it in England, maths. Science and computer science, but you can learn both math and maths on there. It's up to you. You make that choice. And computer science interactively. And this is just the best way to learn. I don't know. It really sucks to sit down. And I remember this from being a kid. And it is so true as an adult as well. Like being told some information, it's like, and then this happens, and then you do this, and then that happens. And I'm like, you what with the what now? But then when it's like, okay, you need to try and solve this problem. So try and do it. And it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you try and you're like, oh, okay, I see. And then they're like, yeah, but do that. And you're like, okay. And then I'll do that. Yeah, and then you do this. It's just a better way to learn. It's 100 times better, and that is what Brilliant does. I don't know if it's 100 times better. That's not a stat that they gave me, but it feels like that, doesn't it? Brilliant has thousands of lessons with exclusive access to new content that's added every month. There's a ton to do on there. Like I said, there's like maths and science, computer science, and it's all interactive and it's all new and it's just great. And look, with Brilliant, you don't have to spend 4 years and you don't have to spend a fortune. Like, university's really expensive. When I went to university, it wasn't that bad. And it's more expensive now. And let's not even talk about America. I mean, goddamn. It's college-level content, and it's available for everyone. And look, more than ever, the world needs more smart. Oh, tell me about it, Brilliant. Like, the stuff we cover on this channel, where it's like, people are stupid. And it's like, no, these people could use Brilliant, can't they? So keep exploring at brilliant.org/brainblaze. You can get started for free. And also, hurry up, because the first 200 people will get 20% off the price of an annual subscription, which is brilliant. Again, that's brilliant, which is brilliant. Get it? Just go to brilliant.org/brainblaze, 20% off for the first 200 people. And of course, you can get started for free, and that's 20% off an annual premium subscription. And now today's video. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Brainblaze. As always, I'm your host, Simon. Welcome to the show. What happens here? Danny writes me a script. It's over there, the bizarre retro video game adverts that would crash today. Like, crashes in not succeed. Like, because crash can also mean the video game can crash, which, you know, pain of your ear. Anyone else play GTA 5? And it's like that loading screen goes on and 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 it's crash, no! I remember once my game crashed so badly. I was playing online with my friends and the game crashed and then it just wouldn't load up. And they were like, what should we do? And I was like, I don't know much about computers. And they're like, I think you might need to uninstall it and reinstall it again. And I'm like, bro, it's like 60 gigabytes. That means I gotta download it from Steam again. And they're like, yeah, dude, have fun. Yeah, video games crashing sucks. What are we here for? We're not here for this nonsense. We're here for Danny's script. Let's go. There comes a time in every man's life where he has to face himself in the mirror and ask his reflection, am I a real hot dog? Or am I just a cold weenie? What the f*** is a cold weenie, Danny? And I'm not a real hot dog, I'm a real boy! It's a question that was posed to gamers in 1990, back in the days when video game companies had no qualms about fiercely insulting most of their audience. When the Japanese corporation SNK launched the pretty awesome arcade-quality Neo Geo console to the world, they did it by taking potshots at their competitors and their potential customers with an advert that declared, if you're still playing Sega, NEC, or Nintendo, you're nothing but a weenie. If you're playing the incredibly high-powered Neo Geo system, you're a real hot dog. That is some it feels like the advert's straight out of the 1950s. Hot dog, old chap, yes! I don't know, that was a weird act. It wasn't quite British, but it wasn't quite American either, was it? But it does feel like hot dog! Hot diggity dog! Sam, roll that meme. What's that meme? I don't know what, is it from The Walking Dead? The one where the guy's like, hot diggity dog! I love that.
I'm so fast, you couldn't even comprehend how fast I am.
I don't know what it's from. I get the feeling that I might be saying I love that, and it'll be like, that guy's actually a psycho murderer who's murdered children. And then I'll be like, I love it! Hot diggity dog! Because he seems like, I don't know, out of context, I'm like, that seems like the sort of guy who you run across in, you know, the Walking Dead world. And he's just lost his mind and just become like mad with power. That's what I'm expecting that guy to be. Fill me in the comments.
I need you to know me. So, Back to it.
Hot diggity dog. It seems a bit harsh, as the problem with the Neo Geo is that it was insanely expensive. Yeah, I remember my cousin got one of these for Christmas one year, and I didn't. I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous of that glorious Neo Geo that you have. The actual console first went on sale for $650, whilst a typical game, it'd set you back $200 a pop. And this was well over 30 years ago. Wait, that's impossible. 30 years ago? No chance. Then it wasn't a Neo Geo, though. My cousin definitely got it was some fancy, it was like a Game Boy, but much better and much more expensive. And it could play all of these cool games. I really thought it was called a Neo Geo, but I guess I'm mistaken because this was not 30 years ago. It's more like 20 years. Oh my god, I'm really old. No, it could be 30 years ago. It wasn't 30 years ago, but... what was it then? I don't know. Prices like that were well out of the reach of the overwhelming majority of miserable cold weenies likely to have seen the advert. So they're just saying, hot diggity dog, this is for rich people. You also can't help but notice that the weenie in the picture looks remarkably similar to the hot dog, but with lots of extra shit dumped all over it. I would have, that's just the dirt that poor people carry around. Said SNK Corporation or whatever the it was. I would have just taken the weenie and left myself enough money to pay that month's rent. The marketing teams had much more of a tendency to go for the jugular back then. In the very same year, Nintendo's all-dominating monochromatic Game Boy was facing a new handheld rival in the shape of Sega's Game Gear. This new kid on the rotating block was much more comfortable to hold. Far more importantly, it boasted an impressive full-color screen. Sega decided that the best way to market this new gadget was to compare Game Boy owners to dumb dogs. Okay. I like how in the past, marketing was just like, it's not what's the benefit of our product, it's what's shit about the companies and why are you a shit person for buying them. If you don't smoke Marlboros, you're a Chesterfield smoking knob. No one you smoke Winstons, you poor son of a bitch. You can't afford Marlboro. And then Davidoff are like, where's my monocle? Yeah, I don't smoke. The only reason I know about the prices of cigarettes is I used to work in a shop that sold cigarettes. And there were big price differences. You had poor people cigarettes and you had rich people cigarettes. And rich people cigarettes sold a lot less because less rich people smoke cigarettes. Fun fact. Showing off the rival handset side by side next to a silly slobbering pooch, the advertisement declared if you were colorblind and you had an IQ of less than 12, you wouldn't mind which portable you had. Of course, you wouldn't care if you drank from the toilet either. Holy shit. I mean, this sounds like the sort of advert that I'd come up while being sarcastic and be like, yeah, you love that if you got an IQ of 4. That's really insulting. I mean, dogs have an IQ of around 100. No, they don't. They have an IQ that's so low, it's not measurable. Cancel me. But Nintendo complained about this one, suggesting that Sega were poking fun at disabled people. In response, Sega said, is that your role, Sega? Is that your job? I feel like the disabled people might want to be the ones who decide that. Sega, hero, because that's, I always realize it's the obvious, it's not the reason that Sega's doing this. Sega are doing this because they're like, we don't like this advert, it's like a take away our sales. So is that virtue signaling? Is that what virtue signaling is? Because that's what Sega's doing if it is what I think it is. In response, Sega suggested that Nintendo should spend more time on improving their crap products instead of working on behind the scenes coercive activities. And in this case, Nintendo's bang on. Oh, I'm sorry, I got these companies the wrong way round. It's Nintendo who were doing no one cares. You get it. You understand. You've got big brains. You've got an IQ of at least 12. My analytics told me that the average IQ of a business blaze. Business blaze? What the is that? Is that what this show used to be called? It was. I was like, wait, blaze, The average IQ of a brain blaze viewer, according to my analytics, is 173. So, congratulations.
Oh no, we've become so smart, they're stupid to us!
The Game Gear's higher price tag, lack of support, and frankly pathetic battery life meant that it was prematurely put to sleep with a whimper. Now, rivalries don't get much more intense than the long-running war between console gamers and the PC master race who believe consoles to be the primitive toys of uneducated peasants. Yeah, the PC people are so intense. They're like, yeah, PCs. And I use a PC. My main computer that I use all day is a PC. My laptop's a Mac. The rest of my a Mac. And look, that PC is much more, and don't get me like Macs are more expensive, because that PC was a lot more expensive than any other than that one that's like $8,000 or whatever. But I don't know who that's for. I feel like Tim Cook made that exclusively for Tim Cook. But like that PC is much more expensive. Do I prefer using a Mac? Yes! Oh my god, yes! And don't get me with the phones. I got so pissed off with Apple and their battery lives going to shit after like the iPhone 6 or whatever that I bought a Samsung. I lasted about 6 months with that before I was like, nope. No. You can shut the fuck up if you disagree. I'm not interested.
Daddy, chill.
American technology developer 3DFX, who specialized in providing upgrades and video cards for PCs, appeared to be fighting dirty when they ran a simple advertisement in 1999 which read, "There are two types of gamers in this world, the ones who still play on consoles and the ones who've actually seen breasts." Classy move there. The unusual thing about this marketing strategy is that the advert exclusively appeared in magazines dedicated to consoles, so it was alienating every single reader by describing them as hopeless nerds who could never persuade a girl to take her top off, or was it? Some have suggested that the advert is a bit cleverer than that. The problem with the consoles of the day is that they couldn't render curves very well. In contrast, a PC with 3DFX graphics cards installed had no such problem with the accurate rendering of, say, boobs. Wait, video games couldn't render curves? So everything was square? I don't remember that. Was this before my first entry into the video game world was, PC, like, back in the day, and then console was the PlayStation 1. So, and everyone's like, "Simon, you never heard of the NES or the Turbo 3000 or whatever?" I was like, no, the first console I had was the PS1, the PlayStation 1, the original big one. And that's it. That's how old I am. I'm not as old as everyone seems to think I am. I pulled 4 grey hairs out of my beard the other day. That made me feel old.
Wow, that is very interesting. Please tell me more.
So nobody was daring to suggest that either a console or a PC gamer had ever seen real breasts. It was just that PC gamers were more likely to have become seriously overheated. Oh, and they saw breasts rendered on a monitor. Perhaps we shouldn't be too hard on 3DFX then. They were throwing shade at both sides of the rivalry. No wonder the company went tits up the following year. Ba-da-bum-bum. Sticking briefly with the subject of boobs, love it. We've mentioned before how video game companies enjoyed a far-flung fixation on flashing female flesh in the 80s and 90s. We're obviously not talking about explicit nudity, and it could be argued that most of it was perfectly harmless fun, even if these surprisingly saucy images were shrewdly and knowingly dished up for an audience of 13-year-old boys. But there were a few occasions when video game adverts raised more than a quizzical eyebrow. Psycho Pig's UXB was a 1988 home computer version of the wacky Japanese arcade game called Buta-san, in which droves of aggressive hogs try to blow each other up with bombs. Oh my god, I ate wild hog the other day. Like, I went to some restaurants in the countryside and they served a bunch of game. And I had wild hog ribs, these giant ribs. And it was amazing. And it was this huge plate of food. And I ate so much that I didn't eat until lunch the next day. I went to bed, I was like, are we having any dinner today? To my wife, and she was like, do we have to? And I was like, no, let's not. And then breakfast came around, so I was like, I'm still not hungry. I literally didn't eat for 24 hours after eating this giant plate of wild hog ribs. It was amazing. Fascinating. So I sometimes I tell these stories, and I know I can just sense Sam's about to play that meme, which is like, cool story, bro, can we hear it again? That's when in my brain I'm like, stop telling the story, because Sam's going to make fun of you. And I can't take that. Sam, no. You'd think that such an unusual concept would market itself, but the software label US Gold strangely decided to largely ignore the Psycho Pig angle. Instead, they opted to go with a double-spread advertisement in which 2 young men gaze up at a massive billboard which depicts a semi-naked woman holding a copy of the game. The first guy comments, "I know which one I'd rather play with." Yes, but have you seen the reviews for Psycho Pig's UXB?
That's a little gay. Hold on.
Now, it's one thing to feature a scantily clad woman as the face of a new marketing campaign, but this one does appear to reduce the role of a woman to a man's plaything on the same level as a home computer game. She might as well just be a mound of sizzling bacon, except a mound of bacon would at least have some tiny relevance to the damn game. Oh yeah, wild hogs and bacon. Oh my god, I want some ribs right now. I just can't stop thinking about those ribs. Can I go to that place for lunch? It's like 2 hours drive. No, I'm not doing that. It's like 4 hours out of my way to have those delicious ribs. Oh my god, I could though. You know what? F it. No, I'm just kidding. I got work to do. I'm going on holiday next week, so it's a busy week for me. Oh my god, I can already feel Sam playing that meme. I'm sorry. Let's go.
Do not be sorry. Be better.
Sometimes I realize I treat this like a podcast. It's not a podcast. You can't just chat for ages. People need it to be punchy. The game was swiftly pulled by the Advertising Standards Authority following a string of complaints that it was gratuitous, exploitative, and offensive. Exploitative of who? The game was about wild pigs. You exploiting those pigs? Let me introduce you to the pork industry. Did Danny mean the ad?
1 hour later.
He did mean the ad. And I read it wrong. My bad. Funnily enough, if you're taking the second guy's advice and actually bothered to read the reviews, you would have discovered that Psycho Pigs UXP was a disappointing slice of mediocrity. Another bet. Oh, new entry. Oh, I see. Danny's put a little asterisk in there, so I know when the next one's coming up because he didn't want to use titles, I guess. Okay. Another barely dressed woman found herself getting compared unfavorably with video games in 1990 when SNK decided to change their marketing strategy for the Neo Geo. I want to read that Nat Geo so bad, like every time I'm like Neo Geo, not Nat Geo, like National Geographic. Having figured out that only affluent grown-ups could have a dream of purchasing their pricey new toy, SNK realized that there wasn't much point in just calling everyone a cold weenie and decided instead to embrace a more adult theme. This time they went with an image of a frustrated blonde housewife in revealing lingerie, conceding defeat that her husband is now far more interested in his Neo Geo than her rampant sexual advances. Here's the sobering slogan. I remember when he couldn't keep his hands off me. This... Again, the only really way to respond to this is classy, guys. Classy.
Billy, we've already told me off. Let's move on.
You're tacky and I hate you.
The advert is actually all kinds of weird. We also see the overexcited husband holding onto his Neo Geo controller as if it's an extension of his crotch. Okay, whilst feverishly playing a real game called Cyberlip, which just happens to be stuck on a screenshot depicting an alien monster that looks exactly like a giant dick. The distressed housewife clearly deserves better than this chump. Maybe somebody who's still playing proper games on a Commodore 64. Next entry. There's a little asterisk, you see. That one snuck up on me because that entry was short. On a similar but much more disturbing theme, the family-friendly company Nintendo appeared to drop the balls when they ran a surprisingly adult advert for the new Game Boy Pocket in 1997. I had one of these Game Boy Pockets.
Bing, 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 bong, 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 bong. Get those lights off! Bing, 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 bing.
I think I told this story before. I got my first Game Boy Pocket because we were on a trip with school. And we'd always, be able to take snacks and stuff. And my mum had packed me a big bottle of Coke and a big can of Pringles. And this was like a big amount of food. And it gets to the... Have I told this story before? If I have, I'm sorry. And it gets to the end of the trip and I still haven't cracked these open because, I don't know, I've never been like a big snacker. And I haven't eaten these things. And I'm sitting next to some kid and he's got this Game Boy Pocket. And this was, relatively recently come out. They were expensive things. And he was like, I will trade you my Game Boy Pocket for those Pringles and that bottle of Coke. And I'm like, yeah, sure you will, mate. And he's like, no, I will. And this kid was, it was a little bit chubby. And I'm like, mate, I can't do that because I'm going to get home and my parents are going to be like, you have to give that Game Boy Pocket back because that's not fair and you took advantage of this. And eventually, I'm like, F it. And then I'm out of a Game Boy and out of crisps and Coke. And eventually, I'm like, yeah, okay then. So we trade it. I get this Game Boy Pocket and a couple of games, and I get home. My parents are like, good job. Legends. And I was really nervous to tell them that I'd done this, because I was like, I'm going to get in trouble for this. And they were like, no, cool. Nice one. You traded like £3 of snacks for like 100-something pounds of Game Boy. And that was when my love of business began. Again, the woman in this advert has come second place to a lump of plastic, but this time she's chained to a bed whilst the hands of her partner are seen fiddling around with the game of Tetris on the new bite-sized version of the handheld device, alongside the slogan, the new Game Boy Pocket. Seriously distracting. The agents, I love Tetris. I'm a big fan of Tetris. I got super addicted to that game a few years ago, and it was like, I'd record a video, and I'd be like, let's just play one round of Tetris. I'd be slamming those, but I got quite good at it. for my sins, and now I don't play it anymore because it's too addictive. The agency behind the ad insisted that it was depicting a consensual activity between two adults, but if you're going to start introducing an element of kinky bondage into your video game marketing, you need to make sure that you get it spot on. And the problem here is that the expression on the woman's face speaks more of terror, or at least deep concern, than it does of sexual frustration. It sounds like you found a model who does not act. It's like display sexual. Oh, what is it? Sexual. Okay. Whenever I see this, I always imagine Lost in Translation, where Bill Murray and they're like, "What's he saying? What's he always say? More passion or whatever." What the was I talking about? Oh yeah, so they're like to the woman, "I need you to do sexual frustration." Is this racist? I feel like I'm being racist doing that Japanese accent from Lost in Translation. I'll just stop. And he's like, "More sexual frustration," and she's like, You could be forgiven though, thinking that that's because she's tied up against her will in a sparsely decorated hideout. And just to add insult to injury, the wicked kidnapper has suddenly remembered that he still hasn't had a good go on Tetris today. Moving away from sexual frustration, let's briefly dive into the cheerier topic of racial violence and white supremacy. Ah yes, nothing so cheery as white supremacy. Am I right, brothers? Oh my god, the dude who takes context and posts it on Twitter is gonna have a field day with that shit. Jesus.
And the Nazi flag, why?
Well, that I'm flying as it's my constitutional right.
You what?
There seemed to be little room for misinterpretation in this shocking billboard advert for a new ceramic white version of the PlayStation Portable in 2006. Not the 1970s, 2006. Running exclusively in the Netherlands, Sony just... What was it? Was it also Heineken, the advert where they slide the beer down the bar in some... This was in a previous Brainblaze video that I don't remember. Ad that was like... Either intentionally racist or, oh my god, someone dropped the ball so hard it went through the fucking earth. Sony decided to mark the arrival of the new version of the handheld console with an image of a fierce white woman aggressively clutching a submissive black woman by the face alongside the slogan, "PlayStation Portable White is coming soon." On first glance, this doesn't look good. That goes for second and third glances too. I thought Danny was going to be, but there is a reasonable explanation. There's not. But quite a few gamers couldn't see the problem. One bewildered Reddit user in particular claimed they couldn't see the problem, but it turns out he quite literally couldn't see the problem. He couldn't make out the face of the black woman against the black backgrounds. But although we might recoil at the idea of a white woman so blatantly and violently dominating a black woman while seemingly proclaiming that a new superior white version of the PlayStation Portable is on the way, Sony weren't actually very apologetic, and they did at least have a semi-reasonable defense. I'm waiting for it, Sony. It's gotta be f***ing good. The ad in question was just one of 100 different variations, which depicted the two women in completely different poses, including some versions in which the black woman was dominating the white woman. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's not a good excuse though, because there's not a long history of white slavery where black people. In fact, is there any history of that? Because it's not the one that's really known about. The idea was to infuse a little erotic tension into their campaign. I thought we were moving away from sexual stuff. While highlighting the two contrasting colors of the console, Sony's argument was that it was completely unfair to take this single variation out of context. Bro, you know that people are going to do that because people are just going to see one of those ads. They might just see one ad and then be like, whoa. And your marketing department need to consider that. Like, more than you did. Apologize. What the f***? But they were talking out of their frazzled USB ports. It's more than fair to take this single variation out of context because the majority of consumers were only ever going to view it out of context. Exactly. If you were mooching down the street and saw this pasted onto a billboard, you weren't likely to see all of the other 99 variations along the same road to put your mind at rest that Sony wasn't racist. While I don't believe that the offense was intentional. No, me neither. I don't believe it was intentional, but obviously you need to consider more than intent. You need to consider interpretation, potential interpretations. That's why marketing and PR companies exist. Come on, guys. As I've said in previous videos like this, I will, if you want to pay me enough money, I'll have a look at things and be like, yes, 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 yes. Whoa. No. 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 It's not hard. And then you won't get blazed.
No, sir, I don't like it.
Whistler Consulting, helping you not appear to be a racist. While I don't believe that the offense was intentional, it might have worked more in Sony's favor if they'd immediately owned up to dropping a clanger instead of banging on about the marketing campaign as a whole. However, they did eventually pull the ads, taking the time to note that the offending image caused concern in countries not directly affected by the campaign. F off, Sony. How about you just apologize and not... Why would you even add that? It just makes you look like a piece of shit. You're like... It's like, oh, I'm really sorry. Not sorry. This was Sony's subtle dig at how most of the anger and condemnation had erupted in the US, even though the ads were never even displayed there. Finally, perhaps one of the most outrageous marketing campaigns to ever grace the sticky pages of the European computer press wasn't actually promoting a video game or console at all. It was a campaign designed to remind corruptible young minds that software piracy is evil and a punishable criminal offense. Is this the one where it's like you wouldn't steal a car that actually led to more piracy, famously? I wouldn't say that software piracy was rife back when I was a kid. It was when I was a kid, and allegedly, what's the statute of limitations? Not that it matters to me. But it was the only reason I ever bothered turning up to school. Wait, piracy was? By the late 1980s, the now defunct ELSPA, European Leisure Software Publishers Association, decided that enough was enough. They started off pretty tame. They ran an advert in which they calmly stated that a legitimate floppy disk will give you hours of fun, whilst a pirated disk will give you 6 months in fucking prison. Fuck me. No, it won't.
Okay, smartass. Let's see what this mystery's all about.
That's right. If you're a young kid caught pirating a game, you're going to end up becoming Bubba's bitch. Then the ELSPA really upped the ante in 1989 when they ran a series of fun comic strip advertisements which encouraged children to shop everyone they know in return for a £1,000 cash bounty. Fucking hell, that is some delusional shit. Not delusional, dystopian shit. You gonna drop a dime on your mate for £1,000? I mean, it's a lot of money. Maybe I would. The comic strips followed the adventures of teenager John Smith. Creative naming. John Smith is like the John Doe of the UK, who had been taught from a young age that software piracy is a bit naughty. In one of the strips, we see him confronting a dodgy market trader who is clearly flogging cheap pirated games when the market trader grumpily advises John to naff off. John is straight on the phone to the new informant telephone line set up by the ELSPA, which goes by the name FAST, Federation Against Software Theft. Okay, so you're not this is a bit different to grassing on your mates, because if it's like, John Smith's mate John Doe buys a pirate video game and plays it at home, nothing's gonna happen to him. It's cool. But the guy selling the games in like a market stall and stuff, I can see why that guy, he's gonna get in trouble. He could get in trouble. Clever John knows that there's now a £1,000 reward up for grabs for any information that leads to a criminal conviction. In another strip, John Smith confronts his own friend who has unwittingly bought pirated software, and they both get on the phone to FAST to divulge the source and share the reward. And in the most alarming strip of all, John grasses on his own teacher in act of sadistic revenge. Some Stasi shit going on. Fuck. Maths teacher Mr. Jones is a real rotter who enjoys giving his class a hard time, but John learns that Mr. Jones is running a school computer club, which is essentially just a weekly piracy session. Yes. Mr. Jones sounds like the sort of teacher I'll be like, legend, yes. Because John can't get to the phone fast enough to drop in Mr. Jones to fast and claim his cold hard cash. That'll learn him. The computer magazines that ran the ads were flooded with complaints from upset parents who claimed that the ads had caused unnecessary grief, and you can see exactly why. What's likely to happen when two former buddies have a big fallout at school and one of them feels like being a particularly spiteful knob? That kid's gonna phone fast hotline and snitch on his game pipe. You've turned schools into fucking Soviet Russia. Fuck. Hopefully bagging £1,000 into the bargain. And this is £1,000 in the 1980s. That's got to be like $5,000 today. Fuck me. That would be so much money. Although it's got to lead to a conviction. And honestly, good luck with that. Although ELSPA attempted to defend the advertisements by suggesting that 80% of software in the UK was pirated, how the fuck would you even know that? How would they even know? Yes, Danny! Nobody was buying this shit. Nobody was buying anything in those days. I also suspect that nobody managed to claim the £1,000 bounty either, because it would only have been paid out for criminal convictions involving semi-professional outfits who were churning out thousands of pirated games for profit. Yes, exactly. Maybe the guy selling the games at the market is getting in trouble, but Mr. Jones is not. Like, he's just not. No one's convicting Mr. Jones. What's it called? Or like your friend who's been pirating games on the DL. What's it called? The Crown Prosecution Service. They're going to be like, yeah, no. Want to pursue a civil case against him? Go f***ing nuts. But to waste the taxpayers' money on that, I don't think that's happening. That's real piracy. Wait, what's real piracy? Oh, churning out thousands of games. That's real piracy. Yes, and obviously it's a grey scale. And the guy like churning out thousands of games, it's probably, that's not okay. And then, BitTorrent came along. As far as I'm aware, no 12-year-old was ever prosecuted because they once duplicated a copy of Rupert and the Toymaker's Party, and yet those 12-year-old kids were the only likely victims of such an ill-considered cutthroat campaign. As for that John Smith character, I can't decide whether he's a sniveling teenage snitch or just a ruthless mercenary who would betray his own grandma in exchange for cash. Yeah, man, money talks. Either way, that kid ain't no hot dog. Hot diggity dog! He's clearly just a cold weenie who deserves to walk the plank. Yes! Thank you, Danny. This was an episode of Brain Blaze. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. And I'm not a real hot dog. I'm a real boy!